This is the story of professional fiduciaries. They are individuals uniquely qualified to step in to manage and protect the personal affairs and assets of others, ensuring their physical and financial well-being, that their wishes for their way of life and death are fulfilled. These professionals, despite the family conflict they may encounter, work to ensure that people are safe, that they are treated with dignity and respect, that their personal preferences are heard and given the utmost priority, while protecting assets and making sure those assets are available to provide for their necessities, care, and comfort. This is the story of California professional fiduciaries.
I became a professional fiduciary as a result of being a paralegal. And it was about 1978 that I got assigned my first case. I'm not sure anybody really knew what that was at that point, and they certainly didn't know how to spell fiduciary.
I became a professional fiduciary in 1990. I am a helper. I knew that I wanted to go to social work school, be a social worker from, I think, the time I was in high school. So that was the career path I chose.
I began my work as a professional fiduciary in 1986. I went to work for the Santa Clara County Public Guardian's Office. I was doing the same work as a private professional fiduciary would be doing. The public guardian does mostly conservatorships in estates. There's a few trusts that they might manage, but then as a private professional fiduciary, you do all of that same work, just not for the government, for your own practice. When I was the president of the Public Guardian Association, that was like 94, I believe. And they were talking at that time about forming a professional fiduciary association. There was a very great need for private fiduciaries to do the kind of work that the public guardians were doing. At that time, the private fiduciaries were looked at by the public guardian as, at least in my area, as a kind of an assistance to handle cases that they couldn't handle. And we had a good relationship with them.
The first statewide conference that I attended was when the three professional conservator organizations were talking about combining.
Those three organizations came together and formed the Professional Fiduciary Association of California.
The organization helped us to formalize exactly what we were and who we were with our bylaws.
The formation from the beginning was very beneficial. It's just to meet other people doing the same kind of work that you're doing, coming against a lot of the same issues, problems, situations.
It became very helpful to be able to collaborate with members of the organization and other parts of the state.
Most people are sole practitioners, and you're sitting in an office by yourself, and you have difficult situations. It's nice to run it by somebody.
PFAC started a process to certify professional fiduciaries, became an affiliate of the National Guardianship Association, who already had a certification process in place.
We had people out there handling billions of dollars and making really personal care decisions we didn't know who they were, what they were doing, what their qualifications were. For years, PFAC tried to get licensing. We'd get an assembly member to carry the bill, and then it would get as far as the governor's desk, and it would get not signed. So that went on for years, and finally we got it where Jerry Brown signed it for us to have a bureau.
In order for an individual to become licensed as a professional fiduciary in the state of California, they have to meet certain educational and experience requirements. They have to complete 30 hours of pre-licensure coursework. They have to take an exam. They have to pass a background check, and they have to pay the requisite fees to the Bureau. Once we determine that they have met the minimum qualifications, then we issue a license to the individual.
When we started serving as fiduciaries, we had very little support from a lot of attorneys because they also did this work. However, they moved forward and started understanding how much we could help their work.
I came to work with professional fiduciaries very early on, in that I had one of my first clients be an experienced professional fiduciary. She taught me a lot more about family dynamics and getting things done in the probate court than any attorney I've ever worked with. I continue to work with professional fiduciaries because they're the people who are doing this for the sake of helping others, and it really takes the kind of dedication that you see in these professionals in order to be successful at this career. Traditional times where you'd see a professional fiduciary brought into a case where the family members were at such a critical disagreement that they couldn't move forward, or when they weren't capable of handling the financial or the health care of the individual involved because they just don't have the skills to do it.
Dealing with the finances is the easy part. It's dealing with not even so much the elderly people or the special needs people, but it's the families, it's the people around them that take the real work.
Very often, the fiduciary might be the first outside person to come into this very complex family dispute. And those family members, it's the first time they've had a chance to really tell their story. So it's so important that that fiduciary just open ears, listens, can be empathetic, can really go far in solving the problem.
The courts most often love professionals in these circumstances because they help bring conflict down and also bring people to a quicker resolution.
The reason it's so welcome is because here I have someone in front of me who's trained, bonded, licensed, regulated, and who has experience in areas that I might not have. When there's objectivity provided, you get a better sense, at least from the judge's perspective. You know someone isn't coming in with an agenda other than to help the very person the judge is supposed to protect.
This type of work centers a lot around very vulnerable populations, and so I think that compassion and empathy is paramount. I think an eye for detail is very important to ensure that they are putting the consumer's needs ahead of their own.
They have to be a really good problem solver. And this doesn't mean having a PhD in psychology or having a business degree. This is practical, good business judgment decision making, because fiduciaries are hit with a variety of interesting crises in an elder's life, and they have to be real boots on the ground and figure out a practical solution.
Your private professional fiduciary has not only certain types of skills, but knows where to find the people who have them. For example, if it's a care situation, a 24/7 caregiver situation, they know which agencies to go to in which part of the city or the county. If it's an accounting issue, they know how to hire accountants, knowing that not only is that private professional fiduciary skilled, they also know how to pull together a team for that particular individual. And that is just the most fabulous, I must say, combination that you can get in a professional fiduciary, and you see that with them.
These traits apply to a fiduciary no matter what type of case they're on, whether they're working with an elder, a disabled adult, a child with disabilities. These traits, or even just a trust with just assets to manage and no sort of person issues, applies to all of those situations.
A professional fiduciary, depending on the nature of their contractual agreement with their client, has a lot of power over decision making for that person. So it's important to be as careful as possible. Well, similar to the other boards and bureaus under the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau places the protection of consumers at the forefront of everything that we do. And we enforce and regulate the Professional Fiduciaries Act. It is the body of laws that outline how licensure works essentially for professional fiduciaries, and it authorizes the Bureau to not only license individuals but also to enforce the act.
Everybody who serves as a conservator and manages another party's finances must be bonded. A bond is basically an insurance policy.
The judge in probate, being required to protect vulnerable persons, has a great degree of ease and confidence that there's not going to be any problem in the long run because of this insurance policy, which is backed up by the bond.
My company, Olson & Associates, is contracted with PFAC. We manage PFAC's membership. We help PFAC in the strategic planning for the organization. We've really been putting a large emphasis on education, the quality of education, and the platforms of education that are available to people, both as members and non-members.
I know that you can get education and get education for your continuing education requirements through other organizations, but you can't get a better education about being a fiduciary than you can get at PFAC.
We've been increasing our digital education platform through our Center for Fiduciary Development, which contains Fiduciary Academy as well as partner education.
Our educational offerings have just skyrocketed. Our conference is such a huge draw and such a boon to our licensed fiduciaries and actually attorneys as well, with a large draw for many different course offerings and educational content, very rich.
We're really looking at a holistic approach to education for professional fiduciaries now and moving forward. One of the things I've seen over the last 3 to 5 years is more younger people entering the profession. There's more people that have graduated with a related degree and have gone into the practice of being a professional fiduciary in their 20s and 30s.
We're seeing newer fiduciaries come in with a different skill set, and I would very much imagine a world where these practices of fiduciaries are combined and they're more highly specialized.
There's always a big growth potential for people who are serving the elderly and disabled. And it's even more so because of baby boomers now getting to be elderly and disabled.
You've got 50-year-old grandchildren wanting to conserve 70-year-old parents, and the 70-year-old parents want to conserve their 90-year-old parents. Our generation is living longer, dealing with more sensitive problems in terms of cognitive abilities. Really, no one's been prepared for that. And the only people that can step in and prepare for it and have the education to do it are private professional fiduciaries.
I think when most people see their estate planning attorney, they're thinking about planning for their death. But what I tell my estate planning clients is you really need to plan for your incapacity. For some people, and a lot of people, it could be years, it could be months. So it's so important when you go to choose your fiduciary, who's going to take care of you during that most vulnerable point in your life when you're incapacitated. I mean, yes, you need to think about who could work with your family after you die to administer your assets and the inheritance, but you also need to think of that really critical, vulnerable part of your life. You can choose a corporate fiduciary, a bank, or in California with licensing, you can choose a licensed professional fiduciary, an individual. An individual professional fiduciary is going to give you a lot of personal attention that a bank just isn't set up to do. When will a bank trust officer come to your house? When will they take you to your doctor's appointment? Where with working with an individual fiduciary, they're your fiduciary. They can make the decision right then and there.
We only grow together by working together to ultimately serve the client better. So we actively solicit and engage other organizations to make sure that we are all moving ahead in the same direction.
I think PFAC will contribute to the growth of the profession, particularly in our collaboration with other like-minded agencies such as the National Guardian Association, Professional Fiduciaries Bureau, certainly Alzheimer's Association. I do feel that PFAC is helping to set the standard of care for our particular profession.
As we as a population live longer, are healthier longer, and become maybe a little bit more diffused as families, the need for professional fiduciaries is only going to grow. And I'm excited about the possibilities that we have as an organization within PFAC. I only see PFAC continuing to grow and continuing to serve this professional community.